Hi guys, Rick here from Photo. In this video we're going to take you through how I edited this image in Lightroom, starting with the original raw file from the camera in colour and then processing it in Lightroom to this black and white image that we see here. Okay, so here we are in Lightroom, and this is the original file. Let me just bring Lightroom back up there. There we go. Okay, so this is the original file out of camera, shot raw. It was shot on a Canon 5D Mark II with a 50mm lens at f8 200th of a second ISO 200. I've killed the ambient light in this scene by nearly 3 stops. Thereabouts. Okay, there's just a little bit of ambient light in there. I didn't want to kill it completely, so it's between 2 and 3 stops, I'd say, because I wanted the ambient light to do a little bit of the lifting on this wall that's in the background, because this wall isn't lit by flash. The flash is off to the left here, which is one single speed light high up on a light stand with a 1/4 grid on, which I believe is a 30-degree grid equivalent. And it really restricts the light source and stops it spilling everywhere. I love those things. I use Opteka grids, and you can get Honel ones which do the same thing, which are about 3 times the price. And of course you can DIY those things as well. Now this is shot with hard light. We can see the shadow, hard shadow line. Okay, it's not a soft light source at all. Now most people would say, oh, you're shooting women with hard light. Yep, I like using hard light. One danger is with using hard light is it will pick up texture and detail, including any blemishes. Not that Sarah has those problems. This is Sarah, by the way. Okay, now in the original image you saw it's black and white, so we're going to convert it to black and white. So we're going to work this image now in Lightroom. Now first off, composition wise, let's just get this out of the way. You'll notice if I put the composition overlay on, it's not on a rule of thirds. Oh, whoops. Not really. I meant to put her towards the right edge of the frame, not smack up against the right edge of the frame, because I wanted a little bit of breathing space here. Okay, so I didn't want this. Okay, and I wanted negative space on this side here. So I'm fine with the composition. It was done intentionally. Remember, these rules are made to be broken. So we'll kill this here. Before I start the conversion, because during the conversion this wall will go a little bit darker, and it's just easier to see the lines as they are now. You can still see them in the final image. Now you notice that these vertical lines here, so we have a frame within a frame here for Sarah, and okay, we have a line going through the shoulder line. I'm fine with that. What I didn't want was a horizontal line cutting through the head anywhere, even down here, or cutting through the neckline. If it's just through the shoulder line here, in particular if they've got hair which can hide it as well, I'm absolutely fine with that. Okay, so it creates a head in a clean spot. That's always generally what I'm looking for. I don't want any kind of intersecting lines, fence lines, posts, lamp posts, trees, whatever, sticking out of somebody's head, generally, if I can avoid it. Okay, now what I generally do on my conversions to black and white, sometimes I'll go straight to black and white by clicking the black and white tab here, let Lightroom give me an adjustment. Okay, and I'll go from there. I have, you may notice here, a preset for the 5D2 for the black and white conversion, which is just baseline. When I'm using flash, I can click that and I can start from that start point. But presets don't really show you what I'm doing to the image. They just click, boom, change everything. So I won't use that. Okay, now generally what I will do though is I work up an image in color first. Now I always work off a strong contrast curve. I do like contrast. I like good color, good contrast in my images. Okay, I generally don't use the faded retro film kind of looks. Those things are for Instagram. I generally don't do them on my work. So I usually great color, good contrast, good color, or black and white. So strong contrast curve. There we go there. Okay, and I'll usually go to the contrast control. Now if I pull that all the way back, ooh, all the detail opens up in the shadows. Okay, and I'm going to punch that contrast up just a little bit to about plus 17. If I remember rightly, that's what I had in the final image. And next what I'm going to do is, actually before I go any further, I'm going to remove a couple of blemishes, one on the wall, one on Sarah. Not really so much a blemish, she has great skin. Okay, we can see a little bit of a distraction down here. So if I zoom in by holding spacebar and clicking, I'm on a PC here by the way, then I can just select that. Lightroom will sample from a area and remove it. I don't need to do anything further, don't need to go into Photoshop for that. That'll just be a waste of time. And okay, there is one other that I'm just going to tackle here, so we'll go 1 to 1. Zoom in on Sarah here. At this stage I'm going to check it's sharp as well, which it is, plenty sharp enough. I mean, it was shot at f8. So, and I'm just going to select this little blemish here. Now I'm just going to make that as small as I can for the selection, and I may move it slightly off what Lightroom samples originally, because sometimes Lightroom will get it wrong and sample something else which just looks like another blemish, so it takes it away and puts another one there. Generally it's very good, sometimes it makes a mess of it. There we go. And I'll close. Okay, I'm absolutely fine with that. I'm not going to go in with a brush and do a load of work in here. You could go into Photoshop and do that. You can do some retouching in Lightroom as well, skin softening, but I'm absolutely fine. Sarah definitely doesn't need it. There we go. Now next, so I've changed my contrast, strong contrast curve. Okay, I'll add a little bit of clarity to my images. I do like to use clarity, but I rarely go above plus 15, plus 20 points, because it just starts to look nasty when you go to 100. There we go. I mean, not that you shouldn't ever use that, but on portraits possibly not. I mean, the thing is with going plus 100 clarity is it's going to bring out a load of details, pores and so forth on the face. I mean, you may want to do that if you're photographing a male who's maybe quite weathered old, maybe someone who's worked on farms all the years, worked as a miner, you know, and you really want it nice and gritty, tons of contrast. Okay, that's fine. Now, I'll usually bring back the brightness just a hair, and on this one I brought back the exposure just a tad and give it a little bit of recovery. Okay, now this is just to make sure that there's no detail being lost in the skin. I mean, there isn't, even if I don't adjust the brightness or the exposure, because I can check here. There's no highlights clipping, highlight warning. I can hold Alt on the PC, I believe it's Command on the Mac, and change the exposure, and you'll start to see things coming in which are blowing out. Now, those little specks are just on the nose, on the chin, and in the catch light of the eye. So not really a big issue, and that's adding over just over a third of a stop. So we'll take that back, and I'm just going to drop that back one spot, so I know I'm good there. Now, if we check for black clipping, okay, and speaking of blacks, generally what I'll do is black levels, I will usually pump those up just a little bit. I mean, this has got a ton of contrast as it is, and if I check black clipping there, we can see, oh dear, we've lost a lot of detail. I don't care, I'm not bothered. We can still see the outline of the leather jacket there, that's fine. Outline of the shape of the head. Now, I don't know what you guys are seeing on YouTube with YouTube video compression, so it may look a little bit different for you guys, but it's absolutely fine. Now, I usually go back on vibrance, so I'm working up a color image first. Yeah, take these back a couple points, because I usually pump up the contrast a little bit, which punches colors generally, and then I'll work the white balance just a hair. Now, if I'm trying to find white balance, I know the value I want for this image, which is 5778, but you can go too warm, it's a sunny day, okay, and just generally work it in, making those fine-tune adjustments, dragging the slide, okay, like so. You can of course use the white balance and sample a grey or a white area, but these values that are showing up here won't really do, because it's going to go very green. We'll put that back, and I'm just going to go +3 on the magenta, and that's the white balance sorted out. So if I was doing a colour conversion, that would be it, beyond just the final sharpening. Now I'm not going to show you the sharpening now, I'll wait until I've finally finished. Okay, and at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to do black and white. You can go saturation, more down. And that just gives you an idea, will black and white work? You can of course click on the black and white sample in there. So we'll put my back in there. And let's just go black and white. Lightroom generally does quite a good job on black and white conversions, although I do usually make some fine-tune adjustments as I go along. So let's just have a quick look there. By pressing the L key you can actually have the screen show the full image without all the crap around it, if you want to get a better idea. There we go. Now black and white conversions, I'll come to the black and white mixing channel here because I rarely take what Lightroom gives me without making any adjustments, and I'm just going to go plus 5 points on the red channel, plus 5. Sometimes it's easier just typing these values in rather than using the mouse as a slider. And orange, watch this, ready? That looks horrible. So these values make a huge difference, in particular on skin tones. Okay, so I'm just watching skin tones very carefully. Now if Sarah had blonde hair, now the orange value and certainly the yellow value would make a huge difference here. The blonde hair would be really bright, but she has quite dark hair. There we go. Now green, and there's no real green value in here. We can see nothing's really changing as I slide that, so I'll leave that. Purple and magenta, not so much really. Okay, you'll see a little bit on that wall in the background maybe, and a little bit on the lips. Okay, so we'll leave those. If I wanted to bring that wall value, I could use the magenta one if I wanted to, but I'm fine as it is. Now the aqua and the blue. The aqua's not really doing a lot in this image. I'm more interested really in the blue. And remember, she has blue jeans on in the colour image. Not too dark, not too dark, not too bright. But if I drag this all the way back, whoa, there we go, they're gone. Okay, she's got no legs. So I want to lift those up just ever slightly. Now as I'm changing the channel adjustments here, okay, I'm watching for the effect on the area that I've selected them for. I can use the bullseye target here and use the mouse wheel to slide up and down as well, and it will select the value in the channel appropriate for the colour that's there. But if I'm changing a value here, I'm watching what's happening to the rest of the images as well, because obviously if I change the red, orange and yellow, it's going to have an effect possibly on the hair, certainly on the skin tones. So I want to be very, very careful watching that. So I'm quite happy with that now. Strong contrast curve. Sometimes I'll use highlights, lights, dark and shadow areas here. And what I will do generally is I'm just going to pull back on highlights just a fraction in this edit here. And it just softens down the highlights here. Remember, I'm using hard light, very specular. And I'm just going to pump up the shadow areas just a hair, like so. Just to help so we can see in detail, obviously in the wall and just on the shape of the line of the body. We could still see that in the original file. It's just so because of the contrast curve that I use and the amount of contrast that I use, I can still see the detail there. And that's looking pretty damn good. Quite happy with that. If I go to the edit that I made, that's already online, there's a little bit more punch in the contrast out there. Probably the brightness level is a little lower. Okay, so brightness level, I noticed the value was plus 42. 43 is close enough, and that's just going to darken down a little bit. Okay, there we go. So I think that's pretty much the same. There we go, and that's how I edited the file to black and white. Now the last stage in any editing process is generally sharpening. Okay, if I wanted to go and do any kind of heavy retouching, yes, I would go into Photoshop. I don't need to add any additional noise reduction. I mean, I shot this at ISO 200, it's fine. Any DSLR at ISO 200 will look great. And I'm just going to add a little bit of sharpening. Now, I usually use the radius 1.1 to 1.2 and pump the sharpening up to around 38 to 40, and fine. It looked plenty sharp enough before. and that's tack sharp. Great little lens, that 50mm. And that's the final edit, converting to black and white. You can do a really simple conversion by dragging the saturation slider down. You can use plugins like Nik Software Effects, or Nik Silver Effects should I say. You can go into Photoshop and do other processes as well, add layers, layer masks, and do all kinds of different conversions. I keep it really simple for black and white, so I'm looking at highlight and shadow. Typically I like black and white shot with hard light, not all the time, but generally because it gives me a lot of contrast. We can see, remember, hard shadow line, this was shot with hard light. If this was nice with a soft or big umbrella or softbox, we'd see a softer transition to the shadow area there. And plus all this would light up as well. Certainly with an umbrella, it's just a light bomb. Okay, so that's how I work my images to black and white in Lightroom. Generally I'll go off the start point on preset there and then work it slightly. You know, notice I made a fractional change to the exposure. That's generally what I do. I like to get my highlights just to the point before they look like they're going to start to clip on the back of the camera on the JPEG preview. Okay, and then I might just back them off a fraction in post-production. I like to get that right in camera. If I'm off by 1/3 of a stop, I'm fine. If I get exposure wrong by a stop, kind of bugs me, although you can pull that back in RAW. So hopefully you guys have found this interesting and useful. Like I say, it's not too much of a Lightroom tutorial. I mean, this is version 3, for example. I'm still not updated yet. I have Lightroom 4 here, just not installed it. But it just gives you an idea of how I look at my images and edit them and convert them to black and white. I like my highlights to be quite punchy. This may look overexposed, certainly on a YouTube video with the compression. Remember, it's not, we've checked, we're not losing any detail there. I'm perfectly fine and happy with that. I like the fact that we can just see this wall and these vertical lines and this frame and the frame here, head in a clean spot. Okay, and it's a nice, good, strong black and white for me. I also like using negative space as well. If you've got any questions, as always, stick them in the comments below. And don't forget you can submit your images for critique as well over at Newtophoto, where myself and Mark will sit and rabbit on in front of a microphone and run through your images and give you some feedback as well. We are still planning to put up a couple of our images or a selection of our images to have you guys do some critiques as well, so watch out for that in the future. Okay, because everybody can learn from someone critiquing their images. It doesn't matter what level that you're at. You can look at an image and see something that maybe we haven't seen, okay, that you don't like. So that should be quite good. If you've got any questions as well, chuck us an email, ask us on Twitter, stick them in the comments below, and we will catch you guys in the next video.